Good evening, ship chasers, and what now has become an annual event. We are doing our Dynasty Superflex tight end premium rookie mock draft before the NFL draft takes place. And to help us do so, we're bringing back Ron Stewart, bringing back Blair Andrews. There's no JJ this year, but guess who is replacing JJ? You guys, the chat. Yes, that's right. You guys are going to get the draft slots here. In this mock draft, we will put up some polls for you guys so you can try to come to some kind of consensus for these picks. It's going to be a fun time here on Ship Chasing. Let's get to it. Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Hanjob.
Fix your sight.
Jamar. Alpha play chase.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally at this point. You're right.
All right. Good evening, Ron and Blair. Welcome to Ship Chasing. Both of you guys fighting against the elements. I mean, Blair has, a house that's sick kids, and Ron would rather be watching March Madness. So you guys are both dealing with different things tonight. How's it going?
It's going great. Hopefully, can keep from getting infected, but that's almost a 0% chance of happening. So this will be the last time you guys see me.
Well,
it's been real.
If you go out how you did last year with a Jahmyr Gibbs selection at 1-3, which at the time seemed very, very spicy, you're in good shape here. Ron, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Kind of coming in here with my tail between my legs. The last time we did this, I gave Pete the Quentin Johnston pick. I took Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. And I think I took Darnell Washington over Sam Laporta. So we went 0 for 3. Pretty awful, pretty terrible showing here. And I'm a guest to, bring some dynasty love here. And man,
I took Tank Bigsby over A-Chan, which is A-Chain on the board because he was still A-Chain at that point.
We'll just say that was Tank Dell.
There are some really funny pairings for those who we did a 2-round 12 person draft. So there were 6 of us. So we each had 2 slots in the draft, which meant we had 4 total picks. And like some of the pairings are hilarious. Like JJ obviously crushes like Bijan, and then Mr. Irrelevant in this draft, Jaden Reed. And then he has Jordan Addison, but paired with Hendon Hooker. And I was like, even existed. I had a pretty nice one here. Anthony Richardson and Sam.
That's
Laporta.
nice. I had a nice one. CJ Stroud and A-Chan.
Yeah, that's very nice. Blair, Jalen Hyatt, and Marvin Mims. Gretch on the turn. Josh Downs and Zay Flowers.
That works.
Feels
worked
good.
out well.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, my QJ pick. What a bust. Pat, the Will Levis and Izzy Abanda what? That one was rough there.
Hey,
multi-millionaire heat check.
Levis just kind of worked out. I mean, you would rather have Addison, but I think you would rather have him than Johnston, Charbonnet, Hyatt.
I love these notes. The Piss Boys are dead. Multi-millionaire heat check. Pat was getting trolled.
It's clear that a lot of these teams were drafting for 2024 and beyond.
So before we get to the festivities and randomizing our draft order, Pat, I know you have a little announcement you'd like to share here before we get rolling.
I do, yeah. Brittany is pregnant, and we're going to be having a baby girl here. And it's happening a little sooner than I thought. She's actually getting induced on April 9th, which is in about 10 days. So, this is not an announcement of something in the future, long way. In about 2 weeks, I'll be a dad.
Exciting stuff, man.
Congrats.
So stoked for you.
Thanks, guys.
Joining the, Gretch blazed the trail with the ship chasing dad life. I followed behind last year, and now you will.
We're all girl dads. It's been
girl
super
dads.
fun.
Yeah,
not about it.
It's four girls.
Yeah. And Ron, you said you had a really big announcement too, right?
I'll be betting the over in Bama, North Carolina tonight. I'm still literally a child. Like that's.
Yeah. Pat is actually just announcing that he is going to be your surrogate father. That's what the announcement is. All right. Let's get to some randomization here. Gretch reminded me that what we did last year to kind of make sure no one, gets really stuck with just a bunch of back end picks, since we're all getting 2 slots, is we're going to randomize first for picks 1 through 6 and those pairings. So that would be like 1 and 24, 2 and 23, etc. And then we will do 7 through 12. So Blair, how many times should I randomize here?
3.
Okay. 1, go back, 2 and 3. Ben, Influencer 101, Pat 102,
Ooh.
Pete.
You know what? Do
3, Blair 1-5 in the chat 6. All right. Let me get these in here. And also, I have a big announcement for overzet.com, which is the host for these mock drafts. The devs have been hard at work on a UI refresh, and we are flipping the board on its head in 2024. We are going portrait.
Whoa.
We are going portrait. We've been reviewing, doing some focus groups. People said the scroll off the screen with the landscape was not ideal. The devs got it done. Portrait mode tonight on Overzet.
Yes.
The crowd goes fucking wild. How about that for an announcement, Pat?
I'm fucking psyched about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You win. And we also had some people in the chat congratulating Ron, and really appreciate that. That's nice. Great to see positivity
exactly.
in the chat.
So chat, you guys, the toughest thing is for you guys. You all have to get on the same page. I will help you out with some polls. You guys need to start huddling right now what you're doing with the 1-6 in this draft. And as I do the second randomization, Blair, do you want to tell people kind of the rules we're operating with here as far as what scoring settings?
Oh, yes. The rules, of course. Superflex, tight end premium. You don't have to start any running backs if you don't want. I think I made that one up, but otherwise, your typical FFPC Dynasty league.
And I think that is the thing. There is no positional requirements for this. We are just trying to draft the best player on the board.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We are going to spin now for this second one.
Unfortunately means none of us are going to take running backs for 24 picks, which is great.
Exactly. Ron, how many times do you want me to randomize this back half of the draft?
Give me 4.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh,
Ron, you dirty dog.
How did I know?
Ron, the chat, Pete, Ben, Blair, and Pat here.
The chat gets the near back-to-back that Pat had last year, the 106, 108.
Yeah, it's like the double. Pete.
It's not bad, chat. It was a good spot. You'll
yeah, Ben, Blair, and Pat. And then we will run that back. Pat, Blair.
You're going backwards.
Now, how is the chat going to vote?
Pat's 13.
Oh, thank you. Pat, Blair, Ben, Pete. What did you say, Pat?
Wait, why am I 13?
We did it as a snake last time.
Okay. I was saying, how is the chat going to decide on their picks? Because they will just shout in the comments section.
My hope is that they will be in the ballpark of a couple names, and then what names I'm hearing, I'll put as an official poll in the chat, and then they can vote, and the actual votes will determine it.
Okay.
The disaster would be as if there's like 19 different suggestions. They need to come up with a consensus 4 to 5
The
names.
chat is already superheated. There's a bunch of different arguments. Charles Cook coming at me saying, "Worry about that yourself, Pat." I mean, the chat is already. I'm just trying to help you guys out.
What is the table talk? We're drafting against you, Pat.
Yeah. My goodness. Okay. Ben, you do have the 101. The honors are to you to kick.
Yeah, this is a lot better than the free agent draft recently when I had to make a decision, although a little easier to make the 102 and 103 in this one. But the 101 is nice to have. It's simple. I will take Caleb Williams. Going into an all-time fantastic 101 spot, he's got Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, got Cole Kmet, who looked pretty sweet. There's a lot of talk that they might add a rookie receiver like a Rome Odunze at the end of the top 10 with their second top 10 pick. Also pink phone and paints his fingernails, but we're gonna play through it.
Okay. Yeah, that is the note we're giving here. What about the fingernails, bro? Caleb Williams, does anyone, Blair, Ron, would any of you have gone in a different direction than Caleb, or is this the obvious chalk?
This is the pick. The correct one.
I think this is the correct pick. I always like to make a case for the top wide receiver at 101.
Yeah.
And I still think that you could make a case for Harrison at 101, but it's harder this year.
I think the case you make is trading down. I think trading down is probably way more like, I don't know, I want to say it's like the move, but it's definitely more in play than people might think because of how strong the two wide receivers behind Caleb Williams are, and I also really like Drake Maye. So if you're going to want something on top, but trading down is definitely in play.
You're just going to pick the 102 through the 104 for everyone?
I'm just saying that's what I like. That's what I like.
Caleb Williams, it does seem like he is going to be the consensus 101. It is interesting just because, I don't know, it seems like it's been a long time since we've had two dominant wide receiver prospects at the top. I don't think anyone would be crazy if you took, say, Harrison and Nabers both go top 5 in the NFL draft. Like, I wouldn't think anyone was crazy for taking them 101 in one of these.
I wouldn't either.
I considered it. Like, I have Harrison ranked 102. I made little rankings for this, and I wrote him as 102. Like, I think I have him over Maye. I think you could consider it, but Caleb Williams, the kicker for me is just that the Bears are in such a good spot to add a quarterback, right? And he seems like an absolute lock to go 101. Keenan Allen is going to be his best friend. DJ Moore is going to be his other best friend. I mean, it's really nice. It's a good spot.
Waldron is like a solid OC. Like, there's not, like, it's not like Getsy's still there. Like, there's no real red flags at all. It's all it's all good.
Yeah.
It's not something I pay attention to, but do we know a lot about the kind of quality of the offensive line in Chicago? Is that a concern for any rookies coming in there?
It's been getting better, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was really bad when Fields came in, but the idea is that they've been working on it for a couple of years, as far as I understand.
Right.
Yep.
Let's see. PFF's final rankings, we had them at 19, but that was before free agency, so I don't really know where they sit.
ESPN Analytics got them at 5th for pass block win rate, which is pretty
okay.
That's
Pretty good. Yeah.
They invested in Darnell Wright last year. Could maybe take an offensive lineman at 9, but I would kind of doubt it. But it seems about average.
Get the fuck out of here. We'll take the draft how we want. And every time you call clock, I take 10 seconds off of your poll. Do you guys buy? Because I still will see mock drafts where they have the Bears taking a wide receiver in the top 10. I mean, like, I've seen like Rome.
Yeah. No, he gets mocked there a lot. Yeah.
Which I think would be bad for Rome and just incredible for Caleb.
But I think that it's hard to figure out the trades, right? But one really obvious spot is that the Falcons moved down a couple spots. They've been linked to a lot of edge cornerbacks that, you can move down a couple spots and get an edge or a cornerback pretty easily. So if like all the mocks of the Bears and Odunze, I wouldn't be surprised if someone comes up and gets Odunze ahead of the Bears.
Yeah. All right, Pat, you're on the clock with the 102. Hard to top announcing a baby, but what are you going to have at the podium for us this time?
I'm going to go with the son of a former NFL great, Marvin Harrison. Not overthinking this one. I think you could make a case for – I think you could make a legitimate case for Nabers, but it's more of like you're kind of giving up the safety of Harrison, who's such a good prospect in his own right, and I think the better prospect, but it's very close. And then I think there's just like David's talking about like guys becomes Harrison. The Caleb meme, Harrison is the meme. There's no like market panic on Harrison. It's just everyone's going to be in for forever unless he's like somehow not good, which I don't think is possible really. So he's I don't know. I just kind of a not overthink it pick.
Yeah.
Really good opportunity to say Frank Gore Jr. there.
Yeah, it is interesting just how, I mean, by his intention, has been out of the limelight, but they're like, he does not get talked about. I mean, Malik Nabers has been all the rage, rightfully so, what he did at his pro day, but it's like Marvin Harrison Jr., like there's no buzz on him because he's not doing anything other than what he did on tape last year.
Yeah.
I did some research on like targets per route run stuff for rookies the last couple of days and wrote up some stuff for the top receivers. I kind of expected Marvin Harrison's numbers to not be great because Ohio State always has other good receivers. And, I just kind of thought maybe he was more of like a film bro, like all that. Like his numbers are fucking outstanding. Both of his last 2 seasons, his freshman season, he was behind 3 future first-round picks. So you obviously understand that he didn't do a lot. Immediately stepped into numbers in his second year that were, I mean, not much worse in terms of volume earning. It was a slightly better. It was like the same targets per run at a little bit of a higher ADOT than Nabers' breakout year, his third year. And the big difference is Nabers' like first 2 years are good, very good, but not in that realm. And then his third year was amazing. And Harrison did it both seasons when he wasn't behind 3 future first rounders. He was elite, very, very like way up here, and then took it to another level last year. I mean, Nabers was really efficient in that 1 year, but the 2 seasons versus the 1 season, I kind of think it's crazy that Nabers is a good prospect, but the fact that people are like, it's too much. It's it's a little too extra to be like Nabers is the wide receiver 1. I don't think you can make that case. I think it's silly.
I don't think it's silly. Nabers is such a high ceiling prospect. He's super athletic. He's kind of seen as more like, I know some NFL teams have been reported to have him wide receiver 1. So, I think, what are you looking for? Are you looking to take the biggest possible swing? Nabers probably has a slightly higher ceiling.
How?
Because he's more raw athleticism, yards after catch, kind of blazing athleticism.
I mean, the fact that Harrison immediately stepped into just massive target earning with efficiency, like consistency down to down is how you play wide receiver at the NFL. He looks like, I saw somebody compare him to like Larry Fitzgerald type of a prospect. Like he looks like a guy who's going to step in and be a Pro Bowl player every year of his career for like 15 years, just earn a ton of volume and be super productive.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So that's a really high ceiling.
Well, that's why I said now. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, no, it's like, you're not. What's the point? The ceiling's plenty high enough. Just take Marvin Harrison.
Right. Yeah.
I like what Matt Harmon said the other day too, where Harrison Jr. had 47% over the last two years explosive plays to Nabers 40%, and it's almost kind of a psychological thing that he gets yak and missed tackles forced, but Marvin Harrison Jr. creates the same amount of big plays.
Yeah. No, that's interesting.
The other thing too, if you're thinking about, I know this is a dynasty draft, but if you're thinking about like 1 to 2 year value, like it seems very, very unlikely that Marvin Harrison slips past both the Cardinals and the Chargers, which are above average quarterback spot. Whereas it is a very high likelihood that, the Giants, end up with Nabers. Like that's probably the smart money for his landing spot. And those are 2 very different outcomes as far as what it means for your early year production.
For sure.
I think the big thing for me, if you're going to make a case for Nabers over Harrison, is that Nabers is almost a whole year younger than him, which is not insignificant. But I mean, I still have Harrison above Nabers, I think.
It's weird. Like, I mean, I get it. I was being a little dramatic about it, but I do think there's a little bit of like I've been pretty pro Odunze too, and then digging these numbers, it's like Odunze is definitely 3. I like to think in terms of tiers, and I don't think there's a tier I don't think there's really any way you can do it other than say Harrison 1, Nabers 2, Odunze 3, and then there's a gap after Odunze as well. Like it's just very ordinal at the top of the wide receiver ranks to me this year.
No, I agree. I think Nabers is in Harrison's tier in the sense that they're both extremely rare prospects. Like they check basically every box, and now we're arguing about, kind of the more stuff in the micro about who's gonna be better in the NFL, what's the style of the games and stuff. And I agree that Harrison should be the clear one, but in a way that's sort of like, I don't think there's like a tier break. It's just that Harrison's the better bet, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But God, I mean, Nabers is a rare prospect. Like, I don't think it's actually like, I'm like, dude, I think I need to raise him in my dynasty ranks. Like he does strike me as the dude, like we, in a year and a half or whatever, like we could be thinking about, you know, Jefferson, Chase, Lamb, Nabers, Harrison as like the clear top 5. Like I think he could be very, very much a part of that group.
Well, that seems like a good spot. Well, I was gonna do this regardless. I do agree with Gretch. I think Harrison is still just a slight notch above, but to me, Nabers is such a smash prospect, and I just do not have the same level of conviction with Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels. I think there's a lot of fun outcomes for them, and I think I am a little colored by best ball brain where I'm fully sold on what they can do for me, but I just don't feel like I have to take the risk of them on here at 1-3. And I think the opportunity cost could just be absolutely massive if Malik Nabers is that top 5 dynasty asset that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I mean, it's tricky because in Superflex QBs have so much value, but that's how I ranked it too. In my ranks, I was alluding to. I think these 2 receivers are just freaking amazing. I think you said that really well because they feel like lower risk bets, even though at QB, Pat, you always talk about this in Dynasty. Like when these guys go top 5 at QB, they retain value, even if they're Zach Wilson. Like I remember after his rookie year, I traded Zach Wilson for 2 seconds, which is like not amazing. It was a loss of value, but I still got 2 second-round rookie picks. It's still very good, right? Yeah. Like I retained 2 seconds after he had a horrible rookie year because there's people that still believe and they know he's going to start. And I mean, but Malik Nabers.
Yeah. I really, yeah. I think Nabers should be 3 at this point. I mean, he's just looking so locked in, such a high ceiling. You know, again, not to compare it to Harrison, but just like he's just such a good prospect, and would be the clear wide receiver 1, I think, if Harrison wasn't in the class. So I like the pick.
All right, Blair, you're on the clock. Number 4 here. Do you have a shocker for us this year again?
Well, I don't know. I think there is a case to be made for a different player at number 3, and it's because people forget this is a tight end premium league. Let's go Brock Bowers.
Wow.
Yeah, Bowers, of course, put up numbers in his true freshman season that would be impressive for a wide receiver prospect. I mean, his production profile is pretty incredible. So I'm excited about what he can do. I'm tempted in a lot of my kind of more, I don't know, contrarian moods to put him at number 1 overall, but that's a little crazy.
I like it. I wouldn't do it, but I like that someone
Not saying it's going to turn out the same way, but it is a little bit like the Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts here, where in tight end premium, you can kind of be like, I mean, this is a really, really good tight end prospect too.
Yeah.
I brought this up with, I think, JJ, where I was like, can someone make this case? Because it's like, he's such a good tight end prospect, and reminded me, Ben, exactly of that, of Pitts Chase. Like, no one's making this case. So I'm glad to hear that you are, Blair, because he's that good of a prospect that we should at least like.
Definitely.
Now, I disagree with you, but I'm psyched.
Also, don't you think there's a bit of almost just like Brock Bowers is so good discourse fatigue? Because like I remember hearing about Brock Bowers at this time next year. They're like, this tight end class is good. Wait until the best tight end comes in the class next year. Brock Bowers would be ahead of all of these guys you love in this 2023 rookie class. And now it's just like he's a lock to be what? Top 15, probably at worst, draft capital. Like basically no question marks on his profile. I feel like people are just bored talking about him.
I think there's Pitts fatigue as well. I think people feel burned.
Right.
Even NFL teams like pushing his draft capital outside the top 10. He's a monster. I like the idea that he's not like Pitts is obviously great, but he kind of wins downfield as a receiver. Like Bowers had 19 carries, 193 yards, and 5 touchdowns rushing, like in college, which is like he's a running back playing like he's just more like H-back. Like you can give him handoffs if you want to and screens. So it feels like there's going to be a lot like easier of a ramp up, and he doesn't need like an elite quarterback to get him open downfield. So he's exciting. I'll be honest. He's probably a favorite to be a Jet. So that's probably his biggest negative right now.
Says the Jets over.
I did my video today doing dream landing spots for the wide receivers. I included Brock, and I know it's chalk, Ron, but I do think the Jets is an awesome spot for him. Like, to just flank Garrett Wilson, could easily slide in as the number 2 target earner there. Rodgers is going to find him, be a big red zone threat, big part of that offense. You'd have to be excited about that as a Jets fan.
I would be beyond stoked. It's just like, at this point, like, dude, I've had my heart broken like so many times. It's just like something's gonna happen. Like, dude, our offensive line's made of glass. Like, yes, I'm excited. We got Tyron Smith, but Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses are both 33. The right guard is coming off an Achilles tear, Elijah Vera Tucker. Like, it's a very, like, Brock Bowers' 2024 projection with the Jets is standing on a house of cards, is like kind of the way I'd put it.
Right.
But it is exciting. It's exciting week 1 for sure. I'll say that.
Well, we saw that house of cards last year. Their whole freaking season went up in
Yeah,
flames.
four plays in, man. Four plays in, just collapsed.
I just had a flashback to doing our shipcast with you, Rod, and you were just in a sad state of affairs.
I was remembering that as well.
That was an all-time shipcast.
It was the best.
Best of the year.
All right, Ron, you are on the clock at 5. The chat is starting to make their plans at 6. Where are you going here?
I am sprinting to the podium to take Drake Maye. I absolutely love Drake Maye. College basketball is on right now. His brother Luke Maye, UNC legend, which like
That's
weirdly
his
gives me.
brother?
Yeah, Luke Maye's his brother. And their dad played football at UNC as well. It's like almost like a McCaffrey-esque family where they're all athletes. The mom played at UNC too, I think. So this is going to sound weird, but that gives me hope that he's less Baker Mayfield and more Josh Allen, if that makes sense, where he's like an actual athlete and can move and he runs the ball. He's made I think he has the most big time throws of the last 2 years. He has like a 90+ PFF grade in both years. He scrambles, rocket arm, I don't know. He has 2 years of starting experience. People love to kind of overthink it. He definitely misses some layups. Like, I'm not by any means a tape grinder. But the guys who grind tape in their basement will say, well, he misses some layups. I don't know. He's super young. It feels like with the right coaching that could get shored up. Like, he just has an amazing arm. He's very exciting. Drake Maye. He didn't have a great supporting cast either this year.
The thing about him too is people are like, he misses some layups and he takes a lot of half court shots, and he sinks a bunch, but I probably should take less of those. I'm like, are you sinking half court shots? That seems good.
Yeah. And Pat, I know you've been very bullish on him for best ball purposes. Does that bullishness fully carry over to Dynasty?
Yeah, I would have. I mean, to be honest, I think he's in the conversation at 2, in that I think he's got that high of a ceiling as a quarterback in Superflex. But the safety of Harrison and the ceiling you're getting, it's almost like the Nabers conversation was like, yeah, but you're getting plenty ceiling, and it's coming with such a just a bulletproof prospect profile. Grab Harrison, but I think he's in the conversation at 3. I would have taken him at 4. I really like Maye in all formats.
I'd say too with it is an interesting debate between the ceilings and floors, but if you do a startup right now, 9 of the top 12 are going to be quarterbacks. To me, I like Harrison Jr. and Nabers. I don't know. I think that they'd almost have to have a Jefferson Chase type rookie year, which is in their range of outcomes. But if they ever wanted to crack the top 6 of startups is so difficult to get there. I think maybe Jefferson after year 1 was there. But we just saw Stroud. Stroud was a top 6 quarterback. He was great, but he didn't have to be the QB1 in fantasy to get there. And then we also see Bryce Young. He's a 6th-round pick in startups, and he was god awful last year. So it does feel like there is a ceiling and floor there with Maye too. I think it just speaks to of the depth of the class. And we talked about it earlier, but if you can trade from the 3 to the 5 and somehow net a first, you can have to throw in a second. It's a very stacked class at the top. These are all top 50 assets.
All of these picks are really fun picks to make.
Yeah.
At 1 or at 2. That goes down to 5 because you have 5 really good prospects. I love the chat is cannibalizing each other.
The
They are going insane right now.
So to set the table right now with what's going on, obviously the picks have gone Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabers, Brock Bowers, Drake Maye. The chat has, correctly identified two main candidates here in Jayden Daniels, the best available quarterback, and Rome Odunze, that tier break that Gretch just talked about.
And it's turned into Lord of the Flies. There is mud being slung. There are dead bodies laying around.
And I've been watching, I have it pulled up here on the screen. You can see the real-time votes coming in. There's 52 votes. Come make your vote heard. I mean, look, there's no integrity in this poll. If you got burners and you're a Jayden Daniels stan, fucking fire them up. Rock the vote here. Because it's 50-50, guys. Like, this is a dead heat right now with this poll.
Daniels is a paper Heisman is one of the comments here. Andrew G says, chaos.
I do want to clarify something because people were wondering about these picks. So to let you guys know, for pick 6, this is the other pick that you're making is 17. That's the team, but you don't really have to worry about then the pick 8 and where's the other one? Did I miss the chat? Did I miss the chat?
6 is 19.
I think you might have, because I got all confused about
You have them at 19, I think.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I didn't have all caps. That's why it threw me. Yes, but they're two separate teams here.
Ron, would you have taken?
Wait,
sorry.
You have Pat in between those two chats in the second round, but it's Ron between the two chats? I think.
Oh shit! Now I'm confused. Which one, Pat or Ben? What needs to be flipped?
The second round between the two chat picks, I see Pat's name, but in the first round between the two chat picks, we have Ron.
Oh yeah, you're right because Pat got moved up. Okay. I think that.
Yeah, Pat had 3 second round picks. He traded into Ron's second round.
He did want to trade back. This is still like a dead heat. 51% Rome, 77 votes.
Whoa, it flipped. It was Daniels.
Oh, wow. It's 51-49. Holy cow.
This is wild. I wonder how, Gretch, if you wouldn't have just kind of shared how much you loved Rome on these airwaves over the past couple of months, maybe this wouldn't be as close.
I don't think it's I mean, I'm going to make the case whenever Rome gets picked that he's getting dogged a little bit by how special we just said Harrison and Nabers are, because he's an incredible prospect in his own right. I saw the Harmon thing the other day where like his whole route tree is all green. And like he's a little bit of a later breakout. Yes, he played 4 years in college, but like he played in a spread offense. PFF, they just wrote a thing today. Somebody over at PFF, I don't remember the name, about how yards per out run when you have more receivers on the field tends to be lower. The expected yards per out run should be lower. You have more competition essentially for targets. It's fairly intuitive. The Huskies ran a very spread offense, and he was still the clear alpha in a spread offense with 2 other good prospects and 2 tight ends that went to the combine. Like they had a lot of competition there, and he was always the legit alpha at UW. I think he's a really good player.
His family has burners on Twitter, and they come at me every time I say he's wide receiver 3.
Really?
Dude, it is insanity. Like if you just utter the words like Nabers is really good, and like you forget to even mention Odunze as like 2 or 1, like there's Ron, like 3 of them.
Ron, that's me. Those are my numbers.
All right, man. This is 84 votes. It's at 51%, 49%. When should we? Is this gonna go to court? Is there gonna be a recount? Hanging chads? Like, I'm terrified right now.
Oh shit! It just flipped.
Oh my god! It's
dude.
Even.
I want to ask Ron about the Nabers Maye. Would you have taken Maye over Nabers?
It's very close. I think I would, without knowing the Nabers landing spot at this point, just because I like Maye that much. Super young, very nice prospect. But like you're flipping a coin. Like I would have both of them as like second round startup picks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh man. 51% here. Rome pulls ahead. Steph is trying to rally the charge for Daniels in the chat.
I actually have Daniels ranked ahead of Rome, for the
record. People are sacrilegious. We've got reports that there are deceased people voting for a team.
Man,
There it goes.
are you in there voting for Odunze? The burners didn't apply to you, man.
Oh my God, it's
Daniels. Oh my goodness, this is all right. I'm locking
98
this at
votes.
100 votes. I'm
It's gonna
locking
be
this at
split.
100 votes. It's at 98. 2 more votes.
should
Two more
lock it at-
votes.
at
Decided.
101 or something.
You're
Do
right.
an odd number.
101. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Blair.
101.
101.
Okay.
99.
All right, one more.
Daniels pulls ahead.
2 more
It
votes.
might end
Who's
at
gonna create a
50-50.
burner?
If it's a Dunze, it's
Somebody's gotta do
50-50.
Yeah, we're gonna go
No,
to
they're doing
101 if it's a
101.
Dunze. If it's a Jayden vote, we're locked. Final vote. Get it in. This is insane. I didn't. Oh, votes, no.
Oh, it
What
tied.
was it?
No, I think
Did
it
you
was.
have the full tie?
I think it was
You
Daniels.
ended tied?
50.
No, one got in right at the end. It looked like, didn't it?
Tied? No, you said
That's it.
50-50 even.
I am.
We had to
I
flip a
am letting-
coin. We
Put it in
had
the
to flip a
generator.
coin.
Oh man.
I'm letting Steph Miller come to the podium on behalf of the chat
No,
and
don't
break the
flip a
tie.
coin.
Steph, I can't flip a coin. We're letting Vice President Steph. She is going to certify this
Yeah.
vote.
That's fair.
All right, good. What'd she say?
All right.
Daniels. She said
The
Daniels.
pick is Daniels. God, that this whole idea in my head, I was like, oh, this would be smooth.
Yeah.
It's so
Top the
easy.
steal. We were definitely trying to give room for Jayden Daniels
Wow.
there.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
100 votes, dead tie. That's crazy.
Insane. Okay.
Well, we know Ron hates Odunze. He's pissing off his whole family and all those things. So you guys might still get Odunze at 108.
Yeah, seriously,
in the
Ron,
cards.
where are you at? You are on the clock at 1-7 now.
Or we're not letting chat explain their pick here.
It can't be trusted.
No.
Yes.
We'll be
Yes.
here all night if I allow that.
But yeah, I'll take Rome Odunze. And this is just part of my growth in the dynasty landscape. You guys know I'm younger. I think it like 2 years ago I would have been like, well, Odunze wasn't an early declare, so I don't know, guys. I don't know if he's a top 7, guy I want a rookie drafts, but the film community is so high on him. I think Daniel Jeremiah has like him as a top 5 player on his big board. He's gonna go top 10. And you have like legit reasons for him not producing earlier, where it's been stacked wide receiver room. He dealt with some injuries early on, but his final year is amazing. Matt Harmon loves him. And that's kind of good enough for me. He also killed the combine. He can play inside and out. He's very exciting.
Super good at all depths.
Yep.
Yeah.
No separation issues. One of the things that's something that pops up with a lot of the guys in this class. And he's kind of seen, I think, as sort of like a contested catch guy to some extent, but like the athleticism and the route running is probably undersold a little bit, maybe. His yards per route run as an underclassman were also pretty good. 2.17 yards per route run through 3 underclassmen seasons. Not like off the charts or anything, but that's pretty good. And then he had a 28% career market share of yards, which is a pretty good mark for a 4-year player. So, he also had pretty good yards after catch on deeper throws. So overall, I still do care that he's a 4-year player, as I'm like comparing him to Nabers and Harrison, but like he checks basically every box you're looking for.
So, and one of the things we talked about this before, but as we talk about the other 2 Washington receivers, both of their offensive tackles, Michael Penix, are all potential day 1 or day 2 picks. Then I also mentioned how their 2 tight ends were invited to the combine. Their running back. All these dudes returned to make a run at a national championship. So he would have been like the one guy that was like, yeah, no, actually I'm going pro. I make a little bit of a mental adjustment for that at least. He did need that senior year, as you sometimes talk about, Pat. It was his best year. But he did elevate.
You're not going top 10 without that year.
Yeah, that's fair. But I'll also say his second season, his first season, we only played 4 games, and we had a bad head coach. His second season, we also had a bad head coach the first 2 years. We fired him. His second season, his targets per out run were actually a career high. His yards per target were horrible. Our offense was really bad.
Huh.
His yards per out run doesn't pop as a sophomore, but he earned volume at a big clip right away. His first heavy route season. His freshman year only ran 40 routes. We only played 4 games, like I said. 250 routes the second year, and was earning volume right away. Was showing some of those traits early. The other thing I'll say about him, you guys are talking about all this stuff downfield, and that is his profile. Like, he runs good routes, separates, and everything. I've talked about this a little bit, though, but we would throw some wide receiver screens occasionally. We throw them to a lot of different guys. When they threw him to Rome, dude, he would always get like 8 yards. Like he was the kind of guy that would fall forward, whatever. Like it wasn't a 2-yard gain. Like he's a physical runner with the ball in his hands. Like another play I mentioned to you guys, biggest game of the year, late in the year, or we had a lot of close games, but we're playing our rival Washington State. We went for it on 4th and 2 in our own like 30-yard line. And like a tie game late, we're about to get upset, knocked out of the national championship conversation. They called an end around to Rome Odunze. Like that's the way. All those little things about like rushing production and kick return production that we talk about, where like the team knows when their players are stars and they want to get the ball in their hands. When our season was on the line, they go to Rome Odunze. Like that's the way that UW was all last year.
I did want the chat reminded me is I was joking about moving on from the Jayden Daniels pick, but we should talk about that a little bit too, because he is such an interesting player, kind of that classic archetype where when he does hit, his super flex value is just insane, but there is a lot of risk to him actually hitting.
Yeah, Jayden Daniels scares me a lot. I think best ball is like how I'm going to try to get a lot of my Jayden Daniels exposure. Because I mean, if he's going to be good, he's going to be good like right away. Right, it's all about rushing. He might score the most points in his entire career as a rookie because he might just run all the time. So I think that the problem obviously is the floor. I have real concerns about him as a passer. He was an awesome deep passer last year, but he's throwing to Malik Nabers and Brian Thomas. He was not very good at all heading into the season. He's the kind of guy like you follow like the journey of these dudes. Like he was kind of seen as like an intriguing kind of like developmental guy, and then he jumps and just has a Heisman winning season, and then all of a sudden he's like, gonna go top 3 in the draft. So that doesn't mean he can't pay off on that, but I do think it creates some floor questions. True, like kind of 1-year wonder as far as like really high pedigree goes. So this is where I would take him though. It's just like if he's a starter, you're probably gonna be able to get out. Maybe it's a little trickier as like the market keeps getting burned by some of these quarterbacks. Maybe you won't have quite as many trade partners as you might have had 2 years ago, but I think you'll probably be able to get out for a decent amount, and he's got such a high ceiling.
Yeah. The Ron Blair, any takes on Jayden?
He's tough because he's just. I think that he's comfortably. I mean, like, I don't know, like the mock drafts and stuff don't really think so as well, but I think he's comfortably behind Maye as an in real life prospect, but the aspect of like his rushing upside, like he could be like, like his ceiling is like Lamar Jackson, RG3 before the ACL tear, but he could also like just absolutely suck. Like he could just be just like a worse version of Fields almost. Like I think Marcus Mariota is honestly a decent comp. Like he could put up some, like same thing with Fields where he put up like a top 12 season and then, there's not a lot of like job security, but it's tough. I've sort of wrestled with it myself where we've seen guys like Burrow where he just comes out and has this like monstrous final year and like nothing much before that. So weighing like these massive peaks where I think Jayden Daniels, like ESPN's QBR is like a pretty decent measure of how good a player was in a season. He has like the second highest all time, ahead of Kyler, ahead of the Burrow Heisman season. But then we also have 3 years of like what the hell happened between. I think he was a decent freshman at Arizona State, and then just like it was pretty awful after that. He's also like very thin, and he takes like these crazy hits when he's running. So it's very tough to deal with because like he's one of these guys where when he hits, he's going to hit in a massive way, and you don't want to miss out on that in like any aspect. But it doesn't feel great now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you kind of can think about how he has Lamar Jackson upside, but on the other hand, Lamar Jackson was good for many years in college, was younger coming out. There are a lot more red flags.
A lot more productive as a rusher too.
Yeah, for sure.
Lamar Jackson is a really unique runner. Like he's not just fast, like he's agile. Like he could, like we joke about how they wanted him to play receiver, but like he could be a legitimate running back in the NFL if he wasn't a quarterback. Like he's really good at like making guys miss. It's different than any other QB in my mind.
There's no highlight reel of Lamar Jackson getting lit up. There is one.
Right. And Justin Fields, too, who has these long, awesome runs. And even Michael Vick, who had awesome, highlight runs. Those guys took hits, too. Like, they don't have the, like, agility that Lamar Jackson has. Like, to make dudes miss. It's in, like, a phone booth. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, you guys aren't going to believe this, but the chat is in a heated argument.
Yes.
Once again.
In the chat's defense, there's a pretty clear tier break here.
Yeah. So we got a vote going right now. It's Brian Thomas at wide receiver and then quarterback JJ McCarthy. I will just say, I see right now we have 166 people watching and only 55 votes. Can we get over 100 votes here for a decent sample here? Although Brian Thomas at 54%.
Oh, who else is in this?
Cases.
It's 52-39. Do you have a third option in this poll?
I had a poll before this that included Xavier Worthy, and then I ended it and started a new one that didn't. So I don't know what's going on with that.
Doesn't add to 100. I was wondering if there was a third option, but
well, there was before, but that poll ended. Xavier Worthy only had 7%. So
yeah. You copy pasted. That's the written part. The percentages are over on the right. 56-44.
Holy shit, that was tripping me
Why
out.
aren't the numbers changing?
Yes, like this. We are stuck in an infinite loop. So 54% Brian Thomas, 45% JJ McCarthy. We're gonna need a strong push here from the McCarthy heads, which I was getting in the chat here. Jonathan says, take the 21-year-old top 5 QB, quite probably going to throw to JJ Addison and Hawk with elite arm talent and athleticism. On the other hand, you'll get lots of game manager stuff about JJ. What are your guys' takes on McCarthy?
I think I'd probably grab him here. McCarthy, like the downside is that he had, I looked at he was fully managed. Fully managed in college in a way that makes you pretty concerned about is he going to actually be a fantasy relevant quarterback in the NFL when he wasn't given any volume at all in college? I looked at percentage of games with 45 plus dropbacks. Maye hit that mark in 42% of his games. Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels were at 17%. McCarthy never hit that mark. 35 plus, Maye was at 83%, Williams 67%, Daniels 42%, McCarthy 7%. 25 plus, Maye every single game, Caleb 92, Jayden Daniels 92, McCarthy 53%. This dude was not throwing the ball. That doesn't seem great. On the other hand, if he goes to the Vikings, he throws really well to the middle of the field. He's mobile enough to make some occasional plays. Can he basically be like Kevin O'Connell's Brock Purdy throwing to JJ, Jordan Addison, Hawkinson? I think he probably can. So, and I think he's going to get the shot to do that if he goes there for sure. So I probably
the gaps in those numbers you just listed for the amount of dropbacks was crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's full projection. I forget who. Oh, was it it was Ted Wynn, I think, was on Davis's pod, compared him to Trey Lance because of the pure projection that the NFL is doing. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I mean, it's hard enough to evaluate QBs just based on kind of their statistical profiles. And when you have someone with such a small college sample, it's even worse. McCarthy has the fact that he's the youngest quarterback in this class. He's getting some buzz from scouts, which makes me think that even though kind of from an analytic perspective, he doesn't look that good, I should probably be paying more attention to him than I am. So it's tricky. Of course, I would have Xavier Worthy here. So there you go.
That's who I am too, Blair. I want to come in off the top rope on Brian Thomas while we're talking crap about JJ.
Yeah,
McCarthy.
let's do Brian Thomas because it looks like he is going to win this poll for the chat.
He probably isn't good. No, I'm just kidding. No, he had incredible efficiency last year. 13.5 yards per target, 17 touchdowns, a bunch of long touchdowns. So his per route numbers incredible, except for he never actually really earned a lot of volume in college. His targets per route run, even last year, weren't even over 20%, which is incredibly low for a first-round wide receiver type prospect. In college, I was talking about Marvin Harrison earlier. His two best seasons are up around 30%. Nabers got up to 30%. Nabers, though, as a true freshman, was in the 20s already. He was at 21%, then he was at 24%, jumped to 29.7 last year. They had Keyshawn Butte, or however you say his name, up until last year, but he was getting worse every year. He had like the really good freshman year, and then he went downhill his sophomore and junior years. And Nabers was filling some of that space. Brian Thomas wasn't, and he wasn't efficient either his first 2 years. So his yards per run his first 2 years are just like not good. And then last year, he has the explosive season. He has a ton of like a monster yards per team attempt, all that stuff, but it's all yardage efficiency. It's really all long touchdowns. It's like a few plays. He didn't show enough consistency earning targets per route for me when you're not even at 20%. I mean, obviously, like scoring, like it's what Pat was joking about earlier with the Drake Maye, like 50-yard or half-court shots. Like scoring 17 touchdowns is really good. Like a lot of long TDs is really good. I'm not saying that's bad. He has the potential to be a high-efficiency, like number 2, but this guy's not going to be an alpha number 1 target runner at the NFL level. Like I'm very confident about that when I look at his targets per run in college. I know he's super athletic, but if he couldn't translate that to drawing more volume, I mean, even alongside Nabers, I have real concerns about his, like, it's like a Josh Palmer profile. You're hoping for a lot of efficiency. It's very athletic. There was a lot of touchdowns. There was a lot more touchdowns. He's more efficient than Palmer. Yeah.
You know, his profile weirdly reminds me of Jalen Waddles from a statistical point of view. And I've kind of brought him up. I brought him up to Eric Froton, who kind of looked at me weird because like they're not like Brian Thomas is much bigger. They're not like, it's not like a comp. But like statistically, and kind of in a similar thing of like what he was playing alongside these other really good prospects. He has like some weirdness in his profile, not as productive as we would like, but he's really fast, came out early, gonna get not as good as draft capital as Waddle, but he will be a first round pick and probably in the top 20.
But Waddle was way better all 3 years in basically everything. Target earning, his worst season was way better than this, 2 percentage points better than Brian Thomas's best season. Yards per route run, his worst season, significantly better than Brian Thomas's last season. His best seasons, Waddle's are through the roof. Like he was incredibly. I understand your point. It's a bet on efficiency and draft capital, but his efficiency, Waddle's was electric. 14 plus yards per target all 3 years. Brian Thomas was inefficient 2 years, and then 1 year that wasn't even as good as Waddle's worst yards per target year.
That's good pushback because I think Waddle was the better prospect, but it's like a similar kind of like, yeah.
I get what you're saying for sure, but it's like a totally different level of bet on that profile, right? In terms of the stats.
I think so. Yeah, I think Waddle was a much better bet.
He feels kind of like Quentin Johnston, not like production wise, but just that like this could go kind of.
Oh, Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer was too harsh, but you're going Quentin Johnston.
I don't know.
Quentin Johnston's a better prospect than Josh Palmer.
No, of course. Yeah, exactly. They'll both get drafted first round. I think Josh Palmer's like. I feel like he was a shock that he even went like day 2 or whatever he went.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brian Thomas Jr. The only thing that I can kind of latch on to him is that I do like that, he's young, he's coming out, he's athletic, he'll be a first round pick. I've heard like top 15 buzz, and it wouldn't shock me at all. He wins downfield, but I thought like the interesting part that he's not your like Martavis Bryant, like 16-yard ADOT. He had a 12.2-yard ADOT in his career and like 22% missed tackles forced per reception. So it seems like he's not. I think he could develop into almost kind of like what T. Higgins is next to Jamar Chase. Like that would be like I think a decent ceiling comp where he could be that downfield guy with a little bit more wiggle. But yeah, there's definitely there's definitely a very low floor. And the target earning ability is definitely a concern.
I agree with that take. That he could be like a Higgins. I like that call. Like a secondary high efficiency play.
If you assume he goes in the first round and put that in the box score scout, Higgins comes in as his top comp, interestingly.
There you go.
Obviously, we don't, a little bit different play style in terms of Thomas.
Well, Higgins, but Thomas, one of the red flags that comes up in my stuff for him is that he had a lot of contested deep targets. And so he has the speed. So I'm like, man, it seems like he should be able to get open deep. But when you have a lot of contested deep targets, it's been generally, especially if you don't have an ultra high contested catch rate, which he didn't, it's been a big red flag for guys like Quentin Johnston. They're, your JJ Arcega-Whitesides of the world. Like, it's not a great cohort. It's pretty. It's like
a
lot
of
difference
is that Johnson had 6 touchdowns in his final season or something like that.
Brian Thomas had 17.
Yeah.
But Pat, that point that he like had a lot of contesting catches scares me, because the reason I talk about targets per run so much and I look at it so much is I think, I know we all know this, but I think wide receiver is such a position about consistency that we talk about highlights and we talk about athleticism. And the reason those things don't always show up in the production is it's down to down. Do you win your route every time? This is like what Matt Harmon's looking at with reception perception and that stuff. Can you consistently do the technique and the things that are required of you? And it seems like Thomas just like has 17 long touchdowns, and that's his whole profile in one season. And he stacked it all together when he's playing with the Heisman quarterback who is extending plays, and he's this athletic player downfield that is then on the other end of these bombs. Jayden Daniels throws a great deep ball. Everyone says, like, I didn't watch a ton of LSU tape. I'm just putting this all together in my head, but it seems a little convenient to me that like, oh yeah, this really mobile, good deep ball thrower, and otherwise he's dealing with a bunch of contested catches. You're saying like. Where's his down-to-down consistency?
So these are deep targets this is deep contested targets. Now, this is actually nuts given the way this conversation has gone. Brian Thomas had 46% of his deep targets contested. Right behind him, Quentin Johnston at 45%. And Josh Palmer is right behind that at 45%. That's crazy.
We got his range.
Now, Josh Palmer only caught 24% of those. Johnston and Thomas were at 38%. I brought this up with Connor Rogers, and he actually felt like some of that's on Jayden Daniels underthrowing him.
That's what I've heard as well. That I wanted to say, I don't watch film, but I have heard that Daniels on the deep ball screwed Thomas a bunch, where like a lot of them, he would be wide open. He comes back like 5 yards to get it, and it's a contested target.
Right. And that's like this whole exercise is designed to like find guys who can't separate deep. And if he's separating deep so well that he's able to come back, then that's noise, you know? So I'm not as nervous about that as I have generally been. Like Keon Coleman is at 47%, so just above Thomas. I'm more nervous about him than Thomas in that way, because everyone says Keon Coleman can't separate. So,
and he doesn't have the speed to make you think that.
And he doesn't have the speed. Right.
All right, Pete.
So the chat did kind of settle 54% on Brian Thomas to JJ McCarthy, 45%. I would say pretty equally heated as some of their previous decisions, but they do lock up Brian Thomas. I am not going to take their sloppy seconds in JJ McCarthy, though. McCarthy, he just doesn't do it for me. I feel like when McCarthy hits, that's typical production you can arbitrage, even in Superflex. Like, I feel like you can get the pocket passers, especially like you can go out and probably not have to give up that much to get a guy like Aaron Rodgers right now and get like that kind of production, or a guy like Baker Mayfield. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of where McCarthy is going to land if he hits. And I understand the draft capital is going to be there. Minnesota, obviously a nice spot, but Xavier Worthy, guys, this is the guy that I have to take here. I think if we hit on some like Devon Achane unicorn-esque, black box mystery in this draft, it's going to be Xavier Worthy. I feel very, very confident he is going to go in the first round of the draft. I am shocked whenever I see a mock draft that does not have him in the first round. I think that is insane. I will bet any amount of money that he's going to go in the first round. And I think it's going to be to a fun team just based on those teams who pick in the back 10 picks. And the fact that he is not just a speed merchant, the fact that he had this incredible rookie season at Texas gives me so much faith that you're hanging your hat on more than just an athlete. And I get very, very excited about what that could mean for our dynasty teams.
This is the dude that when I did the targets per out run thing today, I got the most pumped about. Pete, you've been talking about him that way all offseason in these shows that we've been doing. You mentioned his really good rookie freshman season, and it was really, really strong. The fascinating thing with his targets per out run stuff is that he was really inefficient his sophomore year. And Sean wrote in the RotoViz rookie guide that Blair did a ton of great work on as well, that was Quinn Ewers' first season, and he was inconsistent. He was in a deep threat role, but his targets per out run were massive, even at a 17.6 ADOT. He was at 28.5% targets per out run. That's a 0.89. I do this weighted targets per out run that brings in air yards. It's a 0.89 weighted targets per out run. that number, not a lot of context other than it matches Marvin Harrison's best season. It's the only other guy that's even in the realm of Marvin Harrison's 2 seasons to have a season with that type of volume. Malik Nabers is the next kind of one in that range. He had his best season was 0.80, almost a full 0.1 below where Worthy's year was. But Worthy's efficiency was horrible. So that's actually his worst yards per out run, even though he had all this massive volume that year. Last year, his volume went down a little bit, and he was more efficient. They moved him into a shorter role when they brought in Adonai Mitchell. They put him in the deep threat role. Kind of feel like that's a positive note on the Odunze stuff that I was talking about earlier, where like the team wanted to get the ball in his hands. Last year, it wasn't working. We had him. He was earning all this deep volume. We couldn't get the ball in his hands. Let's move him down shorter. He's still playing with Quinn Ewers. Let's get him the ball in his hands closer to the line of scrimmage. But to your point, Pete, I mean, this is not just a fast dude. He has a ton of target earning. Like no guy who ran these super fast 40s had this type of profile before. Like this has never happened.
Yeah, and I was listening to Travis Maye talk too about how a lot of his production with kind of the drops and stuff, he was playing with a club on his hand last year at times.
Oh, wow.
Did I hear him say? Yeah. What's your take,
Stephanie's
Blair?
noted that a few times. I keep forgetting that.
No, I don't have a different take. I think that's exactly right. I mean, his speed obviously is awesome to see, but he was an interesting prospect. Even like he was one of the top prospects in this wide receiver class, even before you knew he was that fast. So I think, the fact that his combine is probably moving him up into the first round does make a difference and makes him maybe even a little bit more intriguing, but I don't think it necessarily changes the way you're viewing him based on his production. Obviously a much different player, but his kind of production profile reminds you of what Juju Smith-Schuster did in college, where he had this massive, I think it was his sophomore year breakout, and then kind of tailed off a little bit later, but still was good in the NFL. So yeah, I'm super excited to see Worthy. I would even have him probably above Odunze.
Wow.
Okay, there's the spice. I do.
I liked it. I don't know. I definitely want to have some Worthy, and he's pretty attainable in best ball right now. I'm drafting him a fair amount, but I was not viewing that story you told Ben nearly as positively. To me, it's like he was the guy. They try to use him as the deep threat. The difference between the weighted targets per out run and yards per out run is yards per target, and that was not good. He had a 1.91 yards per out run, not great. And then they moved him out of the role in favor of a guy who hadn't been there previously, in Adonai Mitchell, who is very athletic, in play to go first round himself, but also some serious red flags, including real inefficiency. And so it's like, if you lost the deep threat role to this guy, who it's hard for me to, is that a red flag, or is that a first round pick who's just better at those things, and you're kind of doing things that you're good at and he's doing things he's good at? It's not a problem. But it's like, I'm not sure if Adonai Mitchell's good. And if Adonai Mitchell isn't good, that's bad for Xavier Worthy. But Adonai Mitchell could be really good. And then, I think they're probably pretty correlated in their outcomes in that way, because Worthy, it didn't work when they used him as a deep threat, and then they brought in someone else to kind of play that role, and then Mitchell had 32% of the offense, and that's the year in Worthy's career where you're like, okay, Worthy wasn't as productive in his final season because Adonai Mitchell was the number one. So it's like it's sort of like, how translatable is his skill set? Can he be like a traditional NFL wide receiver? Would be my concern with Xavier Worthy, because last year was a little bit more kind of manufactured than it had been.
I think that's what I used the Waddle comp for, where he's kind of a little bit weird. And I'd also say, I mean, like his first year, he was downfield like 13.4 yard ADOT, 12 touchdowns, 980 yards. I get the idea with Adonai Mitchell. I mean, I think that he was a part of those Georgia runs. I think that he was like highly thought of in the transfer portal. But he's had like a 15-yard ADOT his entire career. So it could have just been that, I think that they had maybe, I'm trying to think of like who was on those Texas teams these past few years, but it could have been an idea of just like, this is a more natural fit for our roles here. But yeah, there is definitely like, it's a fair question of like, why is the first year like probably the best year?
But the thing about Mitchell coming and taking his job that's interesting. I mean, Mitchell does end up having a pretty solid share of the offense. Are you talking about like the specific, like hit the receiving yards there when you said that 38% of the offense?
Mitchell had 32% dominator rating his final season, and Worthy dropped from, he went 39%, 33%, 23% in his 3 seasons.
Did Worthy miss a bunch of did Mitchell miss a bunch of times? Mitchell ran more routes and had way fewer yards. Had a much worse yards per hour. Did he score way more touchdowns?
Yeah, he probably scored way more touchdowns.
Because the point I was going to
red flag is that he's like, he had 11 touchdowns. So the Mitchell red flag is that he kind of just turns it on and off, which is the real guy.
Not good. So he came in, he took the deep threat role. He only earned a target on 17.5% of passes in Texas last year. Worthy fell off from the year prior, but was still at 25%, like 8 percentage points higher, way more dominant, like target dominant per route. And just raw targets, 119 to 86. And even though Mitchell ran a few more routes. And so even though there was a big ADOT gap, that weighted targets per route run I mentioned, 0.64 to 0.52, like Worthy was still meaningfully higher at a way lower ADOT because he earned so many more targets per route. That's why I see it a little bit like I do in a favorable way for Worthy, where it was like, we're moving you to where we can get you the ball as opposed to Mitchell's taking your job, because Mitchell didn't get targets really in that role.
He did in the red zone, but fair.
Yeah. He scored a lot of touchdowns. I don't have that on my spreadsheet. That's a good note.
Do you think it's a red flag that Mitchell got those touchdowns, and specifically that Worthy didn't, that he only had 5 touchdowns his final season, I think, even on 120 targets?
Seems like it, yeah. Could be an issue for sure. What do you think?
That's probably the biggest.
Yeah, I don't think it's great.
That's probably the biggest thing I would worry about.
I mean, we use dominator rating typically because it brings in touchdowns. I think the touchdowns have signal. I don't love that Mitchell's dominator rating, as you point out, is basically all touchdown driven. Right. Mitchell's a really tricky prospect because he's
I don't like
he's athletic. He could be a first round pick. He had a breakout season. He's an early declare, and I also don't like him.
The per route run stuff is bad all 3 years. I mean, he's never had a yards per route run even of 1.75 in college, which these guys are all putting up like 3.5 seasons, and he's not even half of that.
He would have a red flag in yards per route run as a tight end. Like, it's
not good.
It's concerning.
Not good.
Before we shit on my pick anymore, let's move on.
No, that's not your pick.
Mitchell. That was 80 Mitchell.
Yeah. 80 Mitchell, 80. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we all like Worthy.
Worthy's fine in yards per route run.
All right, Ben, you are on the clock with 110.
Yeah, I do have Worthy right behind Odunze at 8, ahead of Thomas, and ahead of McCarthy. So I liked your pick. Unfortunately, it meant that I can't take him, so I'm just going to take McCarthy, who I rank 9.
Yeah.
I don't have anything exciting to say. I'm saying so much about these receivers because it's the only position I've done any research on. Anyone want to tag team in and talk about JJ McCarthy?
I already gave you my stats on JJ McCarthy. Anyone else got anything?
He's a leader of men.
There you go.
Winner.
Yeah.
I feel like if you play for Jim Harbaugh, you definitely have that.
Yeah.
I think Purdy's a stealing, if I'm being honest. Like I think he could be one of the Mick Shanahan tree like puppets that just is good.
Do we think it's interesting, right? Because it still feels like there's a decent range of outcomes on like where he goes, although maybe that band is tightening now. But is he a quote unquote safe prospect? Does he have a really high likelihood of giving us the Brock Purdy-esque production?
I don't think he's safe.
Right.
Yeah.
So to me, if you're saying he's not safe, and when he does hit, he gives us like average quarterback play, that's hard to get excited about.
Oh, it's extremely difficult.
It's just so hard to know like what his real ceiling is because of how small the sample is. I think you can. I mean, it's hard to put a lot of specificity to it, but I'm sure he does have some upside that doesn't show up in the numbers. So, yeah,
I'm not sure, and this is going to seem crazy, but I'm not 100% sure that he's a better quarterback today than Bo Nix.
Okay.
I love that take, Pat.
I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, I can actually agree with that, but it's in part because Bo Nix is like 5 years older than him, right?
Right. Exactly. exactly. But like, he might just be Bo Nix again, but he's younger. So you're like, well, maybe he's more. But it's a similar. They're somewhat similar, and you're betting that what you haven't seen is going to lead to upside, that he's got more upside than what he's been able to show so far, which makes sense as a guy who was a lot bigger than we thought. I had concern he was going to come in at like 199 at the combine. He was like well above that. I think he was like 219 or something. He had a good 3 cone, so he can move at that size. He's, fairly mobile. And he's got a big arm. He's got tools, but like, as we talk about today, like, what does he do today? He's kind of like Bo Nix.
Yep. All right, Blair.
With draft capital.
With draft capital. Yeah. He's going to get more starts. He's a better bet for starts.
This feels like kind of choose your own adventure territory here at 111.
Yeah, that's right. As I don't have a lot of confidence in McCarthy, but I do think there's like a huge teardrop after him. I think you could break the seal on running back here, but I am going to go maybe a little bit off the board and go Troy Franklin.
Okay.
Ooh.
That was my pick too, Blair. That was mine. I almost took him over McCarthy, frankly, because I didn't want to take McCarthy.
Yeah.
I guess that's a little off the board. Just by projected, draft capital, maybe a couple other guys more likely to go ahead of him.
Yeah, he's probably a second rounder, right? So I think if he had a better combine, we'd be more excited about him. He came in pretty light and not maybe as fast as everyone was hoping. But I mean, in terms of his profile, he checks a lot of boxes. Early declare, he's got the high market shares. I don't want to say he's a Justin Jefferson-esque prospect, but he does remind you of that season when, Jefferson didn't do anything great, but he was like good at everything as a prospect.
Oh, we remember.
And
checks all the boxes, as Blair famous.
Jalen
Exactly.
Reagor, though, that guy popped off.
So yeah, Franklin. I don't think Franklin is Jefferson, but in terms of a guy who could kind of be a checks all the boxes sleeper, I like him.
Nice.
3-year early declare, yards per route run jumped like a full yard each of the 2 seasons. Like his freshman year wasn't great, jumps like a full yard to his sophomore year. He's a lot more efficient, jumps another full yard. It's 3.32 last year. We were just talking about how there's some prospects that get up in the 3+ range. He was really, really good last year. His targets per route run shot up. His weighted targets per route run really strong. I mean, he just got better each year as like a young guy. He's declaring early. Like, you got to like everything that you see in his profile on paper. It's like what you want. It's early declare, right?
I on paper, but it's like then he comes in 176 at the combine, only runs a 4.41, says it's because he was sick, shows up at his pro day at like 184 or something, and then doesn't run. It's like, oh, you were sick, huh? Then why aren't you running again?
Puts on a bunch of water weight.
Yeah, you dropped weight to get to 4.41. Everyone thought this dude was going to run in the 4.3s. He shows up skinny and runs 4.41, and then talking to some of the film guys, like Brotom was like, dude, this guy's like, he's not going to be like winning on the outside in the NFL very easily. He's very small. I watched some of the highlights with Brittany, and she just was like, this dude's really skinny. Like he just jumped out as being really skinny. He's pretty good after the catch. Tez Walker's like another skinny guy in this that's not as good after the catch. And I think, and I've heard some good stuff on Troy Franklin's route running. He varies his speeds well. And so the film community seems kind of mixed on him, but I wanted to be really into Troy Franklin. And then basically since the combine, I felt like he's just a little bit harder. Like
when you said he was that skinny, you reminded me that Sean's like, after his combine, he's basically a perfect physical match for Robbie Chosen.
Wow.
That's actually a really good comp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like
but
that.
But also not favorable in terms of size.
Yeah.
It reminds me in terms of his profile of Jalen Hyatt last year, who was another guy that I got pretty excited about and didn't pan out, at least in his rookie year. So maybe it's wrong to chase that profile again, but I can't get away.
I like him a lot more than Hyatt because I think he can play on the outside, and Hyatt's about to move to the slot, which maybe that'll work, but it's not great if you're a deep threat from the slot. If that's your NFL role, it's kind of tough to earn volume.
All right, Pat, are we going to get our first running back pick here? You're still going to piss over there?
I'm going to finish pissing. I've got, kind of like a couple more drops left. Gotta get that out. I'm going to go ahead and scoop the falling value here. You guys don't care enough about NFL draft capital, okay? The most important metric there is where these guys get drafted. The NFL has their say. Let's pay attention to the signal, okay? Stop looking at pay attention to the scouts. AD Mitchell, baby.
You just told us he sucks.
I'm pretty sure he does. And he's gonna be a first-round pick, and he's super athletic, and he's got size, and he's, I don't know, he can play with Josh Allen or something.
What did you say his yards per route run was in 2023?
They're bad, Blair. Don't bring that up.
Yeah.
No, I was trying to come
so
up
we
with
could get
anything.
a value on
Sorry,
AD
guys.
Mitchell here.
I was literally trying to come up with anything I could because I knew I saw the way this was going that I was going to have to take him, and just trying to come up with anything.
I kind of like AD Mitchell.
He did score
Yeah, Ron,
touchdowns.
speak on that.
Yeah, Ron, go for it.
Well, here's the thing. His ADOT is kind of dependent on his quarterback, where he's his ADOT this past year was 16 yards downfield. And the issue is that there's we talked about the Jayden Daniels cut-ups. There's Quinn Ewers cut-ups that'll make you cry, where AD Mitchell and Xavier Worthy are butt naked wide open downfield. And Quinn Ewers, what is it? I don't even know what the saying is. It can't hit the right side of a barn or whatever the hell that is.
Broadside.
Yeah, the
Keep
broadside of a
talking
barn.
in similes and metaphors. I'm loving this.
Just trying to paint a picture for the people out there, the audio listeners.
Everyone
Quinn
who's familiar
Ewers,
with Barnes.
when we look at PFF, Jayden Daniels had a 69.1% adjusted completion percentage on 20-plus yard throws. That's first in the class. Even though we talked about he's not really hitting things on target, Quinn Ewers last year, 36.2%, 94th in the nation. Next to guys like Drew Allar. So he was kind of he plays a role that's going to be dependent on his quarterback, and that's definitely a hindrance to him. But if he goes to one of these Mahomes or Josh Allen spots at the back end of the draft, he does get pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, because he does fall in that range. When I did my video today, I slotted him on the Cowboys. Just thinking Jerry, loving him, and then him just being all right, the Gallup thing. Let's get some playmaker downfield alongside CeeDee Lamb. That one I could tell myself a little bit of a story with.
Those are good takes.
All right, Pat, you do have the back-to-back the way this worked out. With pick 13 to kick us off with what most people will recognize as the second round in their drafts.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and break the seal on running backs and take Jonathan Brooks. This dude, I think, would be pretty clearly the consensus RB1 in all formats if he hadn't torn his ACL in early December. He was really productive at 20 years old at Texas, averaged 142 scrimmage yards, 1.1 touchdowns per game last season. He didn't get on the field really until last year because he was behind Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, which I'm not really holding against him. He was a true junior this year, gets on the field. We do have a small sample, though, because he just got out there for 11 games, I think, and then tore his ACL. But he had really nice breakaway ability, 67th percentile breakaway percentage. DeAndre Swift-esque there, 97th percentile elusive rating, so he breaks tackles, 1.46 career yards per route run, which is 76th percentile, 29 receiving yards per game, so he had some decent production there. So versatility, breakaway ability, can break tackles. He's not the biggest back. Jacob Sanderson noted he was kind of concerned about him in goal line situations and stuff, and I would kind of view him a little bit maybe DeAndre Swifty in that way. It's not maybe as I don't view him as a smash prospect. I think he's a good, not great prospect, but I do think there's upside for kind of a 1A in the Swift mold where you're getting receiving and you're getting some big play ability out of it. So I think the nice versatility as a receiver is how we avoid him just being a trap back. But this is where I'm taking the first running back. I should also note, it seems like he's still going to be the number one running back drafted. That's not a lock, but he's still the favorite to be the number one running back drafted, which I think tells you a decent amount given he's coming off a torn ACL.
The way things might break too with him coming back from ACL, say if he doesn't play until later in the season or kind of a slow ramp up, that probably helps buoy his year 1 to year 2 dynasty value, right? Where you can just say, hey, the sample size isn't big enough. The injury, like we didn't get to see enough of him. Whereas like if you see him from the start and he can't climb a depth chart, it's like the Giants take him or whatever, and he never surpasses Devin Singletary the whole season. And you're kind of getting worried. Like it might be a selling point for his dynasty value that he comes on late and then we just have a smaller kind of sample on what we're getting from him.
Kind of like Jameson Williams in a way, where like he had a lot of goodwill. Like even though he did nothing as a rookie, it was like a top 6 round pick in startups. It's tough to wrestle with though, because like I only want to draft running backs if I'm trying to win really in dynasty. So it's like as a rebuilding team, like I'd kind of would rather like future draft capital than holding Brooks on my bench. That's like kind of I think this is like the fine part to take him, but in terms of like roster construction, it's very weird. Like I only want running backs if I'm competing, but he's not going to give you his top level production until 2025. So
I love this point because there's also the issue of like running back primes are like their first 3 years in the league. Like that's when you want a dude, and this is already giving up one of those seasons in some respects, or at least half of it or something. What if he goes and tears his ACL again later in his rookie year after he comes back? What if he tears his other knee? You're fucked. Then
you're J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, then you're J.K. Dobbins. Like
Akers.
You're 1 strike down, and running backs only get 2. They don't get 3.
Yeah.
Blair, I feel like some fun decisions here still. What are you going to do at 14?
Yeah, I think that Brooks and Trey Benson are almost, I have them in the same tier.
Me too.
I think they're fairly interchangeable.
I have them back to back in my overall, not even my rookie rank, is my overall dynasty rank.
Yeah, they're pretty close. Benson has, obviously had an awesome combine. He put up some pretty crazy numbers. 4.4 yards after contact per attempt in his sophomore year at Florida State, 31% evasion rate, a little bit lower in his junior year, but still very good. So I'm excited to see what he can do in the NFL.
Yeah. Do we think if Brooks isn't first running back taken, it's Benson, right? There's pretty much no way someone else jumps of those two.
I think Jalen Wright has an outside shot, but it's it's very likely those two.
Yeah.
Chargers, Blake Corum, top of the second.
Oh, God, man.
Yeah, maybe.
Please no. I can't handle the discourse of Corum Chargers in the second round.
Touchdowns though.
I know. I'm gonna end up drafting.
Any other thoughts on Trey Benson? I've been selecting the hell out of him in best ball drafts right now, but would love a dynasty share as well.
Yeah, my running back model says
my one thing with Benson, I actually flirted with having him as my RB1, and then I got nervous because I'm not sure he goes. Well, there's a very good chance he doesn't go second round, and he's this college committee back. And Blair, I was looking at backfield dominator rating, which is such an awesome stat, and it's one of these things good. Where you've written about this. Like backfield dominator rating is not the biggest thing we need to be concerned about with second round running backs or first round running backs. We see all the time, college committee backs, athletic, which Benson very much is, gets drafted high, gets installed as a starter. We're good to go. But it's not the best sign for a dude who might be like a middle of the third round pick. What if he comes in? What if he has to displace someone who's good? He never really displaced anybody. He's a committee back. He didn't run a ton of routes. He didn't, handle a ton of the production. So I'm actually really, really hyper focused on Benson's draft capital. Obviously, it matters a ton for every running back, but I think it's going to sort of tell us what the NFL thinks he is in a really important way.
If you want the FUD, he's never had 1,000 rushing yards, and he tore his ACL his freshman year. I think that's something that goes really under the radar. He already has a torn ACL. Not that that's not that he's going to have the same issues in college, but it's certainly a data point.
Yep. Ben on the clock with the 15th overall pick.
I don't really know what to do. It's probably a running back pick. My boy Michael Penix has been not the next quarterback up, but he ran a 4.5 or something. Even the Jalen Hurts, like Cam Newton speed, it shocked me. I would have put him at like 4.8. He ran like a 4.55 or something today in this pro day. I think you're going to see him get boosted because that doesn't go on film and stuff, but people will be like, oh, he's sneaky athletic. He doesn't use his legs. So anyway, I think it would be interesting. It wouldn't be weird to see him in this range.
Wasn't there some medical concerns about him? And that would be
big time medical concerns. Yeah. Big time medical concerns for him. And he never really wanted to take hits even in the pocket, let alone like running the ball, and never ran the ball. He has a really low sack rate. And I saw someone reference the good 40 time and say that's maybe why he had a low sack rate. No, man, the low sack rate was because every time someone came through the line, he just threw the ball away. Like he was not going to take a hit. It wasn't like he was evading hits, which is a concern for me for the next level, certainly. But I'm going to go. I don't even have this guy ranked as my next receiver, but I want to draft him, so I'm going to. I'm going to take Xavier Legette.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I liked him. So his first 4 seasons, which is a lot of time, it's all the years that you want to see production. And then one that you're already saying he should have like been in the league by now. He only ran like 500 total routes and wasn't good for basically any of that until last year. And then last year he ran about 400 routes and was really, really good. His targets per route run jumped up a bunch into a solid range at a really high ADOT with really strong efficiency. Gave him, 3.15 yards per route run. It was as a 5th-year guy. That's the concern. Nothing prior to his 5th year is even like remotely good. I mean, it's all very, very bad in his profile. But Sean wrote about, I'm going to quote the road of his guide again, wrote about how he was an athlete prospect out of college, out of high school. And again, never ran more than 200 routes in any of his first 4 seasons. So like probably was still learning the position a little bit. With a guy like this, it's a little bit like the Chase Claypool profile, all that stuff. When we see these really late breakouts, we want the athleticism. That's I'm stealing that from Sean as well. I got to always quote him on all this stuff. But it's like these guys have to have the physical traits. The reason we don't love the physical traits that don't have the production often is like if you couldn't produce at the college level against weaker competition, you had that athleticism, then like how's that going to manifest in the pros? But what I'd like is that even though it was late, we did finally see it manifest. We saw it manifest in some volume earning ability. We saw it manifest in efficiency after the volume earning as well. I'm willing to sell myself a little bit that he needed time to develop. I'm willing to sell myself on a late breakout a little bit because his athleticism is so dominant, and it's the type of athleticism that whoever drafts him is going to be thinking about ways that he can tilt things schematically for them offensively. Like they're going to want to use him. I wasn't very like this is a learning thing for me as well. Like Ron was saying, a few years back, I was really, really high on AJ Brown. I was not as high on DK Metcalf correspondingly because DK Metcalf's rookie or prospect production wasn't that great. I don't think Legette is necessarily on DK Metcalf's level, but I think that was a miss for me on Metcalf because I couldn't see that the team that drafted him, the Seahawks, eventually were going to be like, this guy's an athletic freak. We're going to put him out there. People have talked about Metcalf's route tree not being very developed for years. It doesn't really matter when you're that good of an athlete. Like you're still a better athlete than NFL players. As long as you're a certain degree of producer is my argument. And I think Legette showed enough in that 5th year that I want to buy in a little bit. I want to be in on this a little bit.
Yeah.
It's fun.
He is fun.
Can you add the note? I want to draft him, so I'm going to.
There we go. All right. I'm on the clock with pick 16. I kind of feel similar to how Pat felt with maybe his AD Mitchell pick, and that this isn't my favorite guy, but I do think the draft capital is going to be there. It feels like a million teams are going to fall in love with Ladd McConkey. I feel like a weird profile too. I was reading some of what Gretch was writing about him today. Obviously gets pigeonholed, but an athlete, and the draft capital, like I said, going to be there, can maybe play all over the field too, not just in the slot. And then just kind of the weird production profile that kind of makes you a little spooked about why he didn't earn more targets in college. But if he goes back into the first round, I feel like getting him at the top of the second round of a dynasty rookie draft is going to feel pretty good.
He's a dude I had ranked ahead of Legette, but I just took Legette because I wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, that was the funner pick for sure.
He's a weird prospect, and like I would have taken him where Ben was drafting 2, and the chat looks like they wanted him, so everyone's excited about him. But like his statistical profile is pretty bad. But it's like he's really athletic. The film evaluation on him is like he wins kind of the way a lot of modern receivers are winning. I did a podcast today with the NBC guys, and Denny was just like, I'm extremely confident that this guy's going to produce fantasy points wherever he goes. So let's draft Ladd McConkey. Like, seems pretty fair.
The athletic stuff, the production stuff is bad on a raw basis, but part of that's because he didn't run a lot of routes. I mean, like his whole college career, 165 his freshman year, only 352 his sophomore year, which is far and away his highest, and that's still not very high. And then 148 last year is his lowest, but on a per route basis
last year too.
Okay, on a per route basis, the targets per route run were good. Efficiency is pretty strong. High ADOT the last 2 years. Like people saying, like he gets like typecast as this white receiver, but he's actually like 12 plus ADOT white receiver. It's a little bit unique. We don't see that a whole lot. Yards per route run over 3 last year. Like I was just talking about that, how good that is as far as a benchmark. And he was 2.71 as a true freshman on the small route sample. Not as great as middle year when he had the biggest route sample, but like the per route stuff does make him more interesting. I think he's kind of a high floor guy too. Like I'm with Denny, where I'm like, I think he's gonna be good. He's not gonna be amazing, but he's gonna be good.
Yep. All right, the chat. I'm getting this poll ready for them here. We are about to see how united or divided they are. Did seem like they had a consensus on the 3 to vote on. They got wide receiver Keon Coleman, wide receiver Roman Wilson, and running back Jaylen Wright as their options here. You guys have thoughts about this decision for the chat?
I mean, I think it's very tight. I actually have Ladd, Coleman, and Wilson all back to back in my ranks. So I would be leaning to one of the receivers, but
I think I'd be going QB. Oh, because it's Ron versus the chat on the next 4 picks.
That's
I
right.
think I'd be in the QB. I'm seeing like if you go to grinding the mocks, like they're saying that Nix and some of the mocks I've been seeing have Bo Nix going like 12. I was talking up Penix because of his 40 time. I think he might rise. Grinding the mocks has their averages Bo Nix at 15, Michael Penix at 19.4. Like these are guys that are going to go in like the Mac Jones range and probably get a chance to start early. It's a pretty good super flex second round pick, right, Pat?
Yeah, no, I kind of liked Nix. I came out of my quarterback evaluations being like, and I probably irritated some JJ McCarthy fans with the Nix comment, but I actually think Nix is like kind of good. Like he's not like great, but like if you're trying to like plug in a dude in a system like Sean Payton's, you can kind of make the throws and execute it, and he can throw to the middle of the field. Like he's not amazing at anything, but I wouldn't be shocked if he went 12. I think Denver's in a spot where they like have to do something.
Yeah.
Like, if what they have to do is sit tight and take a quarterback, like I think they'll just, eat that. That's kind of what the position.
It makes sense. See what you get out of him this year while you have the $48 million dead cap or whatever. And if you hit on it, great. You build around that for the rest of his rookie deal. If not, you needed a cheap quarterback this year anyway, because you have all this dead money at QB already.
And if that materializes, like we just all passed on Sean Payton's first round quarterback.
His new Drew Brees.
For dudes none of us really like that much.
Oh, God. And everything about Nix that's the knock is that all he did was throw underneath, and Sean Payton's like, that's my whole offense.
That's my whole thing.
Since fucking 2005.
I can't be bothered to get Marvin Mims on the field because he runs routes too far.
Yeah.
The chat, we're dumping Jaylen Wright. He was losing in the poll, but Keon Coleman and Roman Wilson were neck and neck. So we now need to see what these Jaylen Wright drafters want to do here. And I will not put their percentages from that last poll in this time to confuse us.
Keon Coleman versus Roman versus Roman Wilson here.
Where do you guys think for these rookie drafts in general? I mean, we talked through a few of the tier breaks, after 10 for JJ McCarthy. Do you think we're like after these next 3 picks, another pretty big tier gap, or is this smoother for you guys?
After these or before these?
I think after these next 3 picks.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the QBs because I think it's pretty flat. Like that's where I'm like, you got to insert these middle of the first round QBs if they do get. I would be there now, is what I'm saying.
I think it's a short pick. Yeah.
I think there are a few other guys that I would have in about the same tier as Coleman and Wilson and Wright.
Yeah. It looks like, let's see if we can get a few more votes in. Keon Coleman, 59% of the votes right now. Wide receiver, Roman Wilson. Thank you to everyone watching along and voting tonight. And thank you to Ron and Blair joining us. This is a fun annual tradition. And can't wait for a year to look back and see which of these.
Ron,
I'm getting
Ron, Ron, I know you're into March Madness and you're missing it. I want to get your thoughts on, did you have a lot of Arizona? Because I certainly did.
I had them in a couple brackets, but I've had a pretty brutal, I had a brutal betting first round, but I did have Clemson +7 and money line. So just,
oh, wow.
Just something
Big
to know.
hits. Yeah.
They have a good team, man. They
just something to know. Something to know.
There you go.
Nailed the upset of the day. No big deal.
It looks like, we only have 40 votes right now. It's our viewers keep going up and the votes go down. I don't know how that's happening. Exercise your right to democracy, chat here. I am going to lock this up for Keon Coleman, though, to keep us moving, even though Roman making a bit of a search.
He snap locked in. He was getting too close.
It's getting past my bedtime. We got to start to speed this bad boy up here.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyone have takes on Keon Coleman?
I like Keon Coleman. I like him. I wanted him at this 18 pick. He's going to be a top 50 pick in the NFL. The contested catch stuff is there, but like he's almost like a discounted version of your your contested catch guys, of your Quentin Johnstons. Like everyone's scared off of the profile. Sure, I understand why. But he is one of these guys. Like I feel like he is one of those kind of like vintage Rotoviz where he's like big, right? He's like 215 pounds, 6'3". The contested catch stuff isn't great, but he is also this like he's very young. He played at Michigan State. Like he almost reminds me of Drake London, who also had a pretty high contested catch rate, compared to what we're comfortable with. And then like this is a little bit like not great, but he did well at the combine, man. Where like he didn't run fast, but he had the fastest gauntlet run where he ran 20 miles per hour in the gauntlet when they're firing balls at you, and each side is like pretty damn impressive. Top 5 numbers in terms of miles per hour tracking for all the different routes. So he has a lot of confidence in his hands. He seems like one of these guys who's just like not on a different level as an athlete, but he's a great jumper. He, has the basketball background. He's young. He got some drip to him as well, where he like you can see pictures of him wearing 2 mouthpieces, which I love. Leg sleeve going. He was taking punt returns as well as like a 4.6 guy, which gives you some N'Keal Harry vibes. I know he did that at Arizona State, but you're not paying top 5. He looks like N'Keal Harry, Quentin Johnston, but you're not paying top half of the first round. So anytime in the second round that I see Keon Coleman, I like him because if he hits in the correct way, he could be kind of what we're hoping Drake London is.
Guys, is that the first time that the term drip has been used on ship chasing? I think.
Yeah, dude, I'm trying not to get passed by here as an analyst, and
we're feeling kind of old right now.
Yeah, no,
we're the boomers,
dude.
And it's the second time today. I can't remember stuff. I think it was Denny was talking. Yeah, Denny was talking about Ricky Pearsall with his hair. He's got some of the best hairline, and he takes the helmet off, and his hair is perfectly coiffed still. So
he's got great tattoos.
Great tattoos. So there's a couple guys that have drip.
Yeah, I mean, Odell Beckham had a ton of it.
Yeah, that's the delivery of a guy who's about to be a dad here.
Pete, I want to nominate a quote though. I heard discount Quentin Johnston in there, which I think is a real strong argument for taking Keon Coleman here.
Yeah.
Strong argument for taking him. Yeah.
I'm coming back for more.
discount-
I'm coming back for more.
Yeah.
Isn't he discount AD Mitchell too? It's a similar profile.
Right.
Yeah.
It is. It's reminiscent of 80 for sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. At pick 18, the Riz God himself, Ron, is on the clock. Look that one up on Urban Dictionary, Pat.
I've heard it. Isn't Baby Gronk got the Riz? Is that right?
Yeah. Baby Gronk had the most Riz of anyone.
Who I will be taking here is Bo Nix. Pretty much
Okay.
pencil him in as Sean Payton's first round quarterback. Everyone's gonna look stupid here. And I have one stat to present to you guys. I love Bo Nix. He he had a really awful stretch at Auburn, but like still not terrible. Like if you kind of peel back the curtains a little bit, like his pressure to sack stuff there wasn't terrible. He doesn't take bad sacks. He plays somewhat smart. And the thing is that's very discounted with him is his rushing ability is very underrated. The stat that I'll present to you is that both of them played 5 years. Jayden Daniels has 34 rushing touchdowns. Bo Nix has 38. Third most in my database. He has a huge like red zone ability to rush. He was a dual threat coming out of high school as like a 5-star recruit. I think that he has a lot more move and wiggle than we're giving him credit for. So he's really not all that terrible. I'll push the glasses in for a second. My model like absolutely loves him. Like it thinks he should be like a top 12 pick, but it also doesn't account for COVID years. So you can look at it either way.
My model likes him too. Pete, were you trying to spell Riz there? What were you trying to spell?
No, that's let's ride, but this is the kid's pronunciation. It's a little internet slang there, a little Russell Wilson callback.
No.
Yeah. So do you think it's programmed Bo Nix to the Broncos there?
For the integrity of this mock, I'll take the fall and I'll just like conservatively put him there.
All right. I like it.
The chat, Mac Nova here is trying to list out who you guys should. Oh, it's the Jatavion Sanders guy. Got it. It's the
yeah.
I was like, who's JT Sanders? I haven't seen the JT moniker, but it's the longer name. Got it.
Let me give one more stat here with Bo Nix. Pressure to sack rate's been something that's I mentioned that's the only W I can take is Anthony Richardson last year. I mentioned it last year with Anthony Richardson. He has like an uncanny ability to not get sacked. Andy Richardson's pressure to sack rate 9.9%, Mahomes 11.3%, Bo Nix 11.6%, second lowest in the class behind Michael Penix. So he avoids sacks. He does everything pretty correctly. Like I don't know that he'll be a first round startup pick, but I do like Nix if he gets the capital and the opportunity to start.
I mean, I had a little fun in my write up of him, but I was like, if I told you that Nix has a little Mahomes to his game, you'd be like, what the fuck? But he does. When you were talking about the highs of their games, he does not at all. But he does have the consistent lack of lows, which is a huge part of Mahomes' game and something that probably doesn't get enough love in Mahomes' game. And one of the reasons that I think that Caleb Williams comps to Mahomes, not that people are saying he's Mahomes, but do keep that in mind with Williams, is that he does not have that part. He has the highs, not the consistent lack of lows. It's going to be a little bit more frustrating for sure, but Nix avoids mistakes really, really well. And I do think if he goes in the first round, I think that's going to be, why probably Sean Payton feels comfortable making that bet.
All right. After a brief dust up and confusion in the chat, of which there have been many tonight, we did just settle on Roman Wilson, who was not too far behind Keon Coleman in that last vote. Any takes from the panel on Roman Wilson here?
Good pick.
Chat
Yeah, I like him too.
Is that you were hoping he'd fall to you, Ben?
No. I just was talking shit to the chat. I actually didn't write him up today. I only wrote up the top 10 and grinding the mocks. He wasn't there for draft capital and what they're listing right now. So yeah, I think he's expected to be like the 11th receiver though. I was looking at some of the additional names and making some extra notes, but I didn't do like a deep dive into him yet.
I think all these guys in the Michigan passing offense are just, you kind of have to take their numbers with a little bit of a grain of salt, I was a little disappointed Wilson didn't do better at the combine than he did, but I still like him.
Really? Didn't he have a 4.39? What?
Oh, I know, but there was talk about him doing like low 4.3s and running a 6.5 something 3 cone.
Oh, okay.
So he did well, but it was just the hype was
because he's kind of small, right? And he's not like a big after the
Yeah.
catch guy, and you want him to just be an uber athlete.
right.
He does block.
He's a little
well, too, like that.
McConkey-esque. It's kind of like this. He's a similar vibe to McConkey.
All right, Ron, pick 20. What you going to do here?
I'm just going to take two swings and hope one of these quarterbacks get drafted in the first round. So give me Michael Penix here.
Okay.
We'll see if he gets drafted in the first round. I'm going to be honest with you, Gretch. I'm very bummed that you said like the 40 doesn't really matter for his pressure to sack rate, because that would have been great for my narrative to be like, well, he just placed the 40 and like, yes, he doesn't scramble, but he has the lowest pressure to sack rate in my database. But you kind of said more or less that it's because he's a pussy. He doesn't want to get hit.
That's kind of the take, man.
The ACLs are an issue, but he does have like I don't grind film, but like outside of Joe Milton, he has like probably the best arm in the class. Like it's up there with everybody. So he's fun. He has kind of an excuse for why he stayed in school so long with like, the ACLs and kind of like weird stuff with Indiana. And I think DeBauer came with him from Indiana. Is that true, Gretch? Where DeBauer came with them, or maybe Grubbs, one of the two.
They both I believe they both, or maybe it was just DeBoer, but DeBoer was his OC while he was at Indiana early on. Then DeBoer went to Fresno State for a few years. Then DeBoer came to UW, and he came to play under him because they had that history at Indiana, like early. Like I think Penix is true freshman year.
The issue is his floor is like Carson Strong. If you guys remember him, he like came out of like Utah State, huge arm, statue guy, and just like retired like a year ago. So that's kind of what you're dealing with.
All right, Blair, pick 21.
All right, let's go. A guy we've talked about a little, Jaylen Wright.
I thought maybe there was a chance he would fall to me.
Yeah, I think he's probably the end of a tier for me, and I probably would have taken him even ahead of like the last, I don't know, 5 guys who have gone. But yeah.
Just the low key, a lot of really
Just like
shitty picks.
I don't know what you guys
on the chat and Rod.
Yeah, me and the chat just got flamed.
Body.
No, I mean, yeah, those guys are good picks too, but Jaylen is also a good pick.
The
Not a good recovery either.
yeah.
No, I didn't mean that. I did, but...
Man, I'm torn because I think there's a lot of different ways I could go here. I could reach for another wide receiver that I love. I could crank purple with a tight end, and then there's a couple running backs that I could select here. I want some more running back love. I've been drafting this guy a bunch right now. I'm going to take Braelon Allen. I get the feeling that he could be, the 3rd or 4th running back off the board. I could see him potentially being a guy that finds his way into one of those nice landing spots, whether that's like the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Raiders, kind of a big back. Davis has told me all kinds of glowing things about Braelon Allen that I'm starting to buy into a little bit. But yeah, just wanted to have some fun and draft a running back for once in this goddamn mock draft.
I hate that he ducked the 40 twice. I would have liked to see him run at 235 pounds. It's like a speed score.
Like even if he had run like a 4.6, that still would have been a decent speed score at 235.
Yeah, that would have been fine.
Yeah. All right, I'll make it.
He's very young. He's like 19, Dodger. Maybe.
Yeah, I think maybe the youngest player at any position in the draft.
Yep. Do you? I mean, I guess we could figure it out with some picks here if Pat and Ben. But you guys have. Would you guys be Corum or Marshawn Lloyd or someone over Braelon?
Yeah, I would, but I think Braelon Allen gives you a bigger hit if he hits. Like he's a big dude, and he's really young. So like if he gets draft capital and a team kind of installs him, I'm not betting against him at that point. It's just he feels very binary to me. Like if the NFL's like, nope, we're not that into it, then he could just be nothing.
Yeah. All right, Pat, you are on the clock. Second to last pick here. What's it going to be for you?
This is tough. This is definitely tough. There's a few different directions. Let me pull up the old model here. I'm actually legitimately torn on what to do because to me
I have no idea after you. There's not even like a if you take this that I can do this. Like I have no idea what to do either.
I'm gonna take far down the rankings.
I'm gonna take Ja'Tavion Sanders. Although I think he just had a really bad. Did he have a bad pro day?
His combine wasn't great. I think his 40 was sort of slow for what people were hoping for.
Yeah. 4.69 at 245.
No take backs.
I want to take it back. Can I take it back? Are you gonna let me? I want to take it back and take Quorum.
Well, the record is going to show. You know what? We're gonna.
Now, come on.
Hang
man.
on. Actually, Gretch gets to decide.
He can have Quorum. I don't want Blake fucking Quorum.
The athleticism on Sanders not coming in well is enough. Where I just want Quorum, who is the opposite of Braelon Allen, where he's just like gonna do stuff NFL coaches like, and he's probably gonna have enough draft capital. He's gonna get a role probably pretty quickly. He was coming off an injury last year, right? And so that I think makes his pretty uninspiring rushing production a little bit better. But yeah, I mean he's kind of he sort of profiles as a undersized plotter, but I think he's versatile enough that I forget now who said this, but Devin Singletary was floated by someone as a comp, and that's your upside case. And it, you know, in a similar way where Devin Singletary in no season have you felt like you ever really had a hit, but he just keeps putting fancy points in your lineup. I think that's kind of what you're hoping to get here with Blake Horn.
He had one of the better 3-cone times at the combine. So I think, you know, the idea of him just being a plotter maybe isn't completely accurate.
The other thing too about these guys who are projected to get, you know, top 5 running back capital is whichever one of these lands the Chargers and the Cowboys spot, specifically if it doesn't happen to be one of the first couple of guys off the board. I mean, we how many times have we seen this movie in dynasty drafts? They will be like the 110 or 111 in drafts if you're the Cowboys or Chargers. In Blake Corum, everyone loves connecting those dots. But yeah, like Blake Corum's going to go 10 picks earlier than this if he goes to the Chargers.
It's important with Corum too, is like he looks like a plotter, but he had this knee injury where he like had a torn meniscus or something heading into this year. Like he was actually really efficient before then, where he went from 5.9 yards per carry to 4.8, 3.35 yards at the contact per attempt to 2.42, which is pretty brutal. Like was flirting with 30% missed tackles forced per attempt down to like 11.6%. So he still had production, and he had like, I think he would set the record for like most touchdowns for Michigan or whatever. But before that, it looked like he had some juice. It kind of comes down to his age and thinking that he can rebound to that form or not.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ben, Mr. Irrelevant. I do like this comment from Cody that he wanted me to take Sanders so we can give him the 4th annual Jalen Weidermeyer Award. One of my initial loves. Hey, but last year I redeemed myself. Sam Laporta with pick 23.
Wow, you sure did.
Pat, what was the take on Marshawn Lloyd when we were watching his film last week? Who was
he
the
runs
comp?
like he's panicked.
He runs like
the
he's
Isaiah
panicking?
Pacheco. Like
it was Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah,
I thought it was
Isaiah
a favorable comp. It was not a favorable comp. I'm gonna take. I think I'll just take Marshawn Lloyd. I was gonna take this Ben Sinnott. This other tight end is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Well, you want to do and right when I'm done typing it in, take
no,
that?
because that has a risk of going like a 6th round pick and being the Weidermeyer. So I'll just take Marshawn Lloyd if it's safer. I'll look back and be less concerned about what I was thinking.
There you go.
That's the right pick.
How about this to close it out on? I'm gonna let the chat have pick 25, and then it's done.
That.
Chat, one final heated battle here. Who do you guys want?
I thought maybe you'd go Pearsall there, Ben. But I don't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what his.
That's saying McMillan.
Do you like?
Rich, do you have a preference between the two Washington receivers after Odunze, between Polk and McMillan?
I've said Polk a few times, digging into their numbers a little bit. I think I've come to the conclusion that I don't think either of them is going to be particularly good at the NFL level. I think, to be fair, I think I've come to the conclusion that if one of them hits in a big way, that it's going to be McMillan. He's not good after the catch. He's unreliable with hands, but he does run good routes. He's athletic. I think he could be a guy who just wins on getting open enough. Polk is your more traditional outside, big-bodied, good receiver. I like him. He's good at contested catches, all that stuff. But like, he never earned targets at a good clip per route. He's not going to be. I mean, there's your Josh Palmer profile. Like at best, probably if he gets the opportunity that Palmer's gotten and ran enough routes, he's probably not going to earn enough targets. He's a stud, like with the ball in his hands. He always makes big plays in big spots. Like, he's a fun dude to watch, but for fantasy, like, that doesn't matter. You got to be able to like earn a lot of volume. And so anyway, I always really loved Jaylen Polk. He was a guy I always like loved cheering on and watching. He always made big plays. He also disappeared for whole games. Well, like, we had this theory because he's from Texas that he like can't catch in the rain. That we played Oregon State this past year in the rain down in wherever, Beaverton or wherever the hell their school is. And I think he had no catches and like 3 drops in that game. He was like really bad at that game. So if he goes to some like northern city, if he goes to like the Browns or the Patriots or something where they play outdoors, don't take Jaylen Polk. That's my one little weird note.
The chat right now is throwing a lot of shit against the wall, but I am honing this down to just a 2-horse race here. This is what it's going to be for the final pick. Ricky Pearsall, which seems fairly, rational, or Isaac Guerendo. Isaac Guerendo is getting so much love in the chat right now, guys.
He's fun. I almost took him. He's the dude that blew up the combine, right?
Yeah, he's fun. He has the highest running back freak score of any running back in our database.
Wow. How far back does that go?
Oh, man. Probably 2005.
So like 4 years old.
Saquon Barkley. I was 4 years old. That's good.
The other aspect to Guerendo is everyone has blue balls on him because you can't draft him in the big board. So there's extra enthusiasm to be able to get Guerendo on a squad.
Are there other guys you all thought, like, who else were you considering with these last 5 picks?
That Ben Sinnott tight end. I have Bucky Irving on my list. People like that. Audric, I don't know, how do you say his name?
Audric Estime. Jersey boy.
Yeah.
A couple of those dudes. You guys at Rotoviz like this Devontae Walker guy from UNC quite a bit.
Yeah,
he looks interesting.
Yeah, Walker's kind of interesting. He had a pretty good combine. He was kind of deep threat at UNC. I think the kind of the major knock on him is that he was a 4-year player who really didn't do much in his first. Oh no, that's wrong.
He's a
I'm thinking of somebody else. Yeah, he is. He's kind of old. Started at Kent State and was crazy productive there before transferring to North Carolina.
He had a weird transfer issue.
He did. It wasn't clear if he was going to play for North Carolina, and so he wasn't even really like. I don't think he was even practicing with the first team. He was practicing, but they were like, "Yes, this sucks. You're not going to have eligibility." And then he got eligibility like halfway through the season, but what I've heard is from the film guys that his routes and stuff were a lot smoother at Kent State, and that he kind of was it was a little bit like playground ballish. He's a deep threat. He doesn't add much after the catch at all, but he can win deep, kind of outside, just like down the field guy. But yeah, he's a tricky eval because of all the transfer stuff.
Yeah.
What's the deal with Bucky Irving?
Bad combine, right?
Yeah, not super athletic, not that big. Kind of like he's not like an amazing receiver, but like he's sort of in that receiving back mold. I mean, I guess
he caught 56 passes, right? And
it wasn't super efficient though.
Yeah, right.
1.39 yards per route run. That's not bad, but if that's like your calling card, I'm not impressed.
Sure.
But yeah, he's I don't know, like he's kind of in this group of running backs who like never does anything except he kind of resembles Kyron Williams. So maybe
Well,
Pete's muted.
Pete's muted, but he's talking.
We're having a good time. Just sitting
Let
in
me try that
silence.
again. What I was trying to say, God, I was firing off some hot takes there, but I guess now I'll just end the show.
That was for the members.
Yeah, exactly. Rod, Blair, thank you for joining us for this new annual tradition. We did miss JJ, but the chat, they did their best to fill in for his big shoes, I would say. Ron, what do you got going on these days over on your YouTube channel?
Just draft stuff, dynasty stuff. It's all dynasty over there. I do stream like best ball content sometimes. Really anything fantasy football is on the channel, Ron Stewart. It's just Ron Stewart on the YouTube. And yeah, I'll drop everything, even March Madness, to hop on a podcast with Pete Overzet and the gang over here. So it's always fun hopping on here. You guys, you keep it light. It's fun. We're joking around. It's not very it's not a chore to be on here.
Unless you're talking about Bo Nix, and then things get real serious.
Things get steamy.
Blair, RotoViz rookie guide out. I've been enjoying that. What else can people look forward to?
Yeah, rookie guide is out. We got the third one coming after the draft, so watch out for that. I'm going to have probably some fun wrong reads coming out over the next few days, so stay tuned for those. We got a lot of good work going up on the site, some new writers that are doing some awesome work. So yeah, it's an exciting off season for RotoViz.
Gretch, you just had a big post breaking down the rookie wide receivers for stealing signal subs. Anything else on the horizon?
Going to talk through some of that with Sean on some recording tomorrow that will come out on the Stealing Bananas feed next week. I won't be writing or anything next week because I'm driving my family to Disneyland. So yeah,
nice.
I'm off next week.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, we're going to have a bit of a mishmash schedule coming up over the next few weeks. Some episodes where Gretch will be out, a couple where Pat will be out, and then we all will reconvene for our annual round one NFL draft hang. But yeah, we're still going to have shows for you guys over these next few weeks. We'll book some guests and continue talking these rookies in advance of the draft.
I'll just note, I've got my rookie stuff going to be out before April 9th. All of my rookie will be on Legendary Upside. So I've got running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends getting that all rolling out. Talking with Matthew Betts on Monday, talking through some of the injury situations like Nick Chubb. Excited about that. And then, I'll be from the 9th until the night of the draft. I'll be out of the commission, taking some time off, but back for the draft.
That'll be a glorious return for the draft party. I already can't wait.
Yeah, they'll have some big Kadarius Toney energy, I'm sure. For me, I have another video out on the Deposit Kingdom YouTube channel. I went through all of the top pass catchers with underdog ADPs and dreamed up the best possible landing spots and then tried to predict where their ADP would end up if they hit that dream landing spot. And it was kind of a informative exercise for trying to actually figure out how much of the upside is already priced in to some of these guys and who are the ones where there actually could be even more meat on the bone if they get an awesome landing spot. So if you guys have been drafting, I think you'll enjoy that video over on the Deposit Kingdom YouTube channel. Otherwise, that's it for me. Very fun night, chat. I will post your team on X and we can let the court of public opinion decide who ultimately won this mock draft. We'll see you guys next time on Ship Chasing. Peace.